Welcome to the Easy Odds Premier League videocast and the final week, of course, of the Premier League. Who's going to go down? Is it going to be Hull City or will it be, unbelievably, Newcastle United after their terrible run of games? Easy Odds editor Simon Hopper is with us, fresh off tremendous winning bet. Sunderland, of course, gaining that 0-0 result at the Emirates on Wednesday night. 3-1 bet was landed. I'm at 3-1. We'll have a bit of that. Very nice indeed. So let's get straight into the action. Hull versus Man United, 4th versus 18th. And I was gobsmacked when I found this. Behind Crystal Palace, who that surprised me on its own, Hull have lost the most home games, 9. But it sort of balances it out here because Man United are the top 8 teams have won the least on the road, which is 6. But I suppose the most important stat is not a stat. Whose need is greatest?
It's the motivation, Paul, absolutely, yeah. Obviously, Hull need a win and only a win. The maths are refreshingly simple for this relegation final day scrap. Man United, obviously, the top 3 is gone for them now. They need a 7-goal swing with Arsenal on the final day, which isn't going to happen. So, United, I mean, there's rumours that their players have been sort of letting go a little bit this week, not really fully focused for this game. Still 5-4 favourites, United, with Hull 23-10. I think that's about right, Paul. I wouldn't go too overboard with Hull here. I know they need the win more than anything, but they needed to win their last 3 games and they lost all 3 of those. They needed to beat Burnley at home. They lost 1-0 at home to Burnley. They needed to win Spurs last time out. They lost to them. Yeah. They needed to beat Arsenal at home. They lost to them comfortably. So they've only won 5 home league games all season just because they need the win. There's no guarantee that they're actually going to get it. So I think 23-10 against an undercooked Man United still looks about the right price for me. But there is a bet that stands out for me here, Paul. And it's under 2.5 goals, which is the best price, 21-20. Now, I'm assuming the markets are thinking that it's going to be goals because basically Hull need to win, so they're going to go straight on the attack. But as I said, they need to win the last 3 games, and they scored 1 goal in those last 3 games. They struggle so much for goals, Hull. It's the main reason they're going to go down, in my opinion. They've scored 33 in 37 league games, which is really not good enough. No. And if you watch the game against Tottenham last weekend, they missed so many chances. I mean, it's not like they don't create the chances. Nikica Jelavic missed an absolute bucket load.
That's why he doesn't play for Everton anymore.
Well, that's why he doesn't play for Everton anymore, indeed. Yeah. And United, well, I mean, they've only scored 3 goals in the last 5 league games. Wayne Rooney might possibly not make it for this game again. He was injured against Arsenal, didn't play in that game. So with United a bit undercooked, can't imagine them going for it too much. So I think unders at 21-20. And a tame Premier League exit for Hull, I'm afraid to say.
And those of you who are regulars here on the video cast of the Premier League will know that Mr. Hopper, in the past few weeks, has rather fancied quite a few unders, and he's been right a few times as well. So another odds against wager for you to kick off our Premier League video cast. Let's go to the other big game, the other pertinent game. Newcastle versus West Ham. Newcastle just, of course, have been in total freefall over the last 2 months. 17th versus 11th. The Hammers have based their partially successful season, of course, on their home record, which has yielded 9 wins. But they've only got 16 points from 54 away from home. That's a terrible stat. 16 from 54. If they'd have got maybe 25 of the 54 away from home, they'd have been bordering on qualifying for Europe.
Well, this is what confuses me about this game, Paul. Pretty much every pundit on telly has said, oh, Newcastle just can't win this game. They're playing so badly. But have they actually looked at West Ham? This is like the best game Newcastle could have possibly asked for. I mean, I know Newcastle have lost 9 of their last 10 league games, but they're 4-5 favourites, so the bookmakers are fundamentally disagreeing with the pundits here, and I disagree with the pundits as well. I think Newcastle 4-5 is about the right price. Yeah, I think, as I said, this is the best game Newcastle could have. West Ham have been on their holidays even longer than Newcastle. I mean, they've only won 2 of the last 15 league games.
Since December.
Pretty much since December. 4 defeats from the last 5 on the road. And also Newcastle, I think their home defeats have been excusable recently. If you look at the sides they've played, they've lost to Swansea 8th, Spurs 6th, Arsenal 3rd, Man United 4th. Against bottom half sides at home, they've only lost 1 of 8 at home this season to bottom half sides. They're not too bad at home against the lower teams. So I think Newcastle will actually get the job done. I don't think it's a bad fixture at all for them.
Brilliant fixture.
Obviously, Sam Allardyce is going back to Newcastle. The club who sacked him 7 years ago. I'm sure he'd love to relegate them, but that's the only motivation I can see for West Ham. The bet for me, though, Paul, is both teams not to score, which is a similarly low scoring angle at 29-20. The market's gone so overboard for goals here, but these sides can barely grab one between them at the moment. I mean, Newcastle have only scored 9 in the last 14 league games, which is a huge problem. Also, and West Ham are even worse. They've only scored 6 in their last 11.
Amazing after the way they started the season. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and on the road it's even worse. They've not actually scored a single goal in over 5 hours of football on the road, going back to their game at Leicester on the 4th of April. So I don't know why the market's so convinced there's going to be goals here. It's interesting, last season, Paul, West Ham went to Man City on the final day. West Ham had nothing to play for. Man City needed a win to clinch the title. It was a tame 2-0 Man City win. It was routine. I'd expect something similar here. I think West Ham will just turn up and play average football and not be too motivated. So both teams not to score, 29-20, and Newcastle to stay up.
Newcastle to stay up. All our Geordie fans will be very happy with that. By the way, if you're a big darts fan, don't forget, of course, the Premier League final taking place. Simon's done a big preview on that. It's, a couple of big bets could be landed, couldn't they, as well?
Got 2 very good anti-posts, particularly Raymond van Barneveld at 28-1.
Go on, Barney.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that one.
Have it. But there was a very good question on Question of Sport last night. Which were the 3 players with their surnames beginning with B that have won the BDO? And I think it was Phil Tufnell's team said Van Barneveld, but of course he didn't win in the when it was the BDO.
He did win the BDO, didn't he?
No, it wasn't Van Barneveld. No.
Oh, dear.
Steve Beaton was one of them.
Yeah.
Steve Bunting, and I've forgotten who the other one was. You'll probably know. And if you know, let us know here at easyodds.com. Loads on the site between now and, of course, and the weekend, of course. Big horse racing weekend coming at the weekend after next as well. Plenty of anti-post columns as well. Do have a look at them. And do remember, prices change between now and the weekend and extra books will be added. Have a cracking weekend.